Hello, Thunder Wizards. So this is going to be, I don't know what number, but the continuing vlog of reinventing myself. So I think I've just entered my third week. Seems like a lot longer. Just entered my third week since arriving in Australia, and I'm in the second house, beach house. The first one I was in for 4 days, and I've been in this one for a couple of weeks now. So, what I am learning in this part of my reinvention is having to do with flexibility. So, what happened to me yesterday was I woke up yesterday morning and I was feeling very stiff. I had been stiff for a couple of days, a lot of stiffness in my lower back and in my hamstrings. And that happens sometimes when I surf a lot, but it's just something I've noticed a lot lately. So I woke up this morning. Interestingly enough, now that I think about it, when I would think about relationships, like if I started thinking about having a relationship with somebody, because that's been on my mind for a while, but I would get, if I really listened to my body and I would think about getting into a relationship, I'd feel a lot of tension in my lower back. And it's because the thought of being emotionally responsible for somebody is still not something I feel like I have a lot of. I'm still processing the death of my spouse, a year and a half ago. And, I just have to be honest about that. Anyway, so I woke up yesterday morning and I was really stiff, and I had decided that the night before when I went to bed that I was going to start doing yoga again. You may not know it, but I used to teach Kundalini yoga. And Kundalini yoga is, it was taught by a man named Yogi Bhajan, and it had Hatha yoga combined with a lot of other dynamic movements, a lot of dynamic breath work and mantra and things like that. And anyway, it really does help release the Kundalini. So bear in mind that Kundalini is the psycho-spiritual energy within the spine that emotionally attaches us to this earth. So when we do Kundalini yoga, the idea is you release and you refine your emotional, psychological attachment to the earth, and you are helping to create a balance between your psyche and your soul. Many people don't know what Kundalini yoga is about, and regardless of what they say, that's what it's there to do. If you've ever done Kundalini yoga, you know that there's a lot of spinal twisting. You do a lot of dynamic things where you twist the spine, and a lot of dynamic movement. And what that does is that releases besides all the other wonderful health benefits of that, it releases the psycho-spiritual energy within the spine. And people experience this as a rush, but when you do that, then the idea is you follow that with mantra. So many people don't know this. The vast majority of people who go to Hatha yoga, and I don't care if it's Iyengar or if it's hot yoga, if it's sitting around doing static poses, and postures, it's Hatha yoga. I don't care what name they use, and like, for instance, Iyengar. That's just the name of some guy who has his particular twist on doing Hatha yoga, and they get so wrapped up in their own specific, but it's just Hatha yoga. And the thing about Hatha yoga is that Hatha yoga was designed to be the prelude to prepare the body to be able to handle the higher level meditation and spiritual work. And so people who go to these hatha yoga studios that are all over the place and they just do a bunch of stretching and then they get up and they leave, it's like doing, it's like having foreplay and then not having sex. The whole point of all of that stretching and breathing was then to prepare you for deep mantra work, mantra meditation. It's because you're releasing the kundalini so that then you can get it to balance with your soul so that you will be a spiritual human being. Anyway, in case you didn't know that. I used to teach kundalini yoga years ago, so anyway, I was feeling very stiff, and when I thought about being responsible emotionally for somebody else, I felt all this tension in my lower back. So I decided, after going to a kirtan meditation, which was has been pleasurable, I decided to do some yoga. So I woke up yesterday morning and I did a kundalini yoga routine, and I did a lot of spinal twists and a lot of stretching, and I was very stiff, but I could feel it definitely releasing. And then I did some kundalini yoga mantra afterward to get the energy flowing. And I definitely felt a big physical release of tension. But as soon as I was done, I was fatigued. I was so tired. So tired. And I couldn't function. And what I've been focusing on since I got here, I made friends with, a masseuse. There's a masseuse out here, and she and I have become friends, and she's invited me to some of her spiritual gathering, and so I've gone to a couple of kirtans, which, if you don't know what that is, it's singing mantras. And in my experience, they've been, usually the people, maybe just in the Western world, that do it are usually Krishna followers. I'm not a follower of Krishna for a bunch of reasons. It's just not my thing. But those are still some very powerful ways to connect spiritually. And what's been happening is that as I've gone to these kirtans, a lot of mourning has come up, a lot of sadness and pain, and continuing to release and let go of everything. Let go of my fiance who passed, let go of my life, let go of my identity. I've been dreaming at night a lot about the hometown I grew up in, and I can feel that mentally I'm making the shift to let go of all of who I was. And then just now the awareness of, wow, I'm in a foreign country. I don't really have a home anymore. I've got places that I'm going to be renting, but I have no idea where I'm going to end up. No real security about, where I'm going to end up living. And so after doing that, intense kundalini yoga and releasing the spine, which is we hold a lot of our spiritual or psychological attachments in the spine, releasing that, I think, put me in sort of a, my body just had to release, and I was just, it reminded me of the fatigue that I felt when my fiance passed. Like the day that she passed, I went into this deep, all of the emotions that are associated, but if you've ever gone through the death of the spouse, you may know what I'm talking about. You would think that I would have just been weeping and moaning, which I did some of that, but really what happened was I just went into almost a coma, and my body just shut down, and I was so fatigued. The fatigue went all the way into my bones. That's how I felt it. It was just like the fatigue was in my bones, and I couldn't get out of bed. And I would force myself to get up and go to the gym just to get everything flowing. It saved my life, but it took me at least a month before that deep fatigue went away, and then some of the real mourning started to happen. But it felt like that. It felt like that kind of, not to that extent, but it felt like that. And I came to the conclusion that I was going through a death, that I was dying to my old life, dying, on a deeper level. And I think that's really what I've come here to do. at least for this time being. Just let go. And as you know, I'm hitting a nodal return, which is where the north node and the south node of the moon realign to their original positions when you're born. And I have been consciously aware that that was going to happen, and had the conscious intention of redefining my identity and dying to my old self. But it's not just a physical thing, a mental thing, it's also a physical thing, and I really felt that yesterday. So I'm feeling a little better today, and I'm going to go meet with a friend, but I've decided I'm going to wait to do some yoga until maybe later tonight, so that if that fatigue hits, I won't have the whole day in front of me where I can't function. So that's where I'm at, and it made me want to share with you the idea of flexibility. My teacher, who was the guy who taught me Kundalini Yoga, he says that chronological age is meaningless. It's all about the flexibility of the spine. As long as the spine is flexible, you will retain youth. Doesn't mean that you won't have gray hair or get wrinkles or other things. It just means that your youth and the health of the cells of your body, are directly related to the flexibility of the spine. Now, the flexibility of the spine is important because the spine holds the Kundalini. The Kundalini is the psychological energy that attaches you to this earth. And this is what people, even in Kundalini Yoga, don't understand about why Kundalini Yoga is so healing. Because Kundalini Yoga it's Hatha Yoga, it's also dynamic breath work and a lot of dynamic exercises to keep the spine loose. And doing that releases a lot of Kundalini. And then in Kundalini Yoga, when you've done that and you've released all that, then the second part of the Kundalini Yoga set is to do meditation. And sometimes you'll do a meditation, meaning a mantra meditation, for an hour, sometimes longer than that. But at the very least, you're going to be there for 10 minutes or something. And that was the whole point. Hatha Yoga, all of these yoga studios all over the world where people go in and they do these stretching and then they get up and they leave, they don't realize that Hatha Yoga is the preliminary. It's the first step to yoga, union. And what is the union? The union is between your psychological spiritual energy and your soul. And this is the whole point. The reason why people have Kundalini psychosis, when people get all the crazy feelings and they have hallucinations and they have the horrible, demon, or they go and they think that they're God and they're full of bliss, it's because their psychological energy within the spine has been stimulated and it is not balanced with the soul. That's why it's psychosis. This is why they have psychological problems that look like things like schizophrenia, because the psyche is not balanced. So the reason why Kundalini Yoga has such a strong emphasis on mantra meditation afterwards is because the whole point of the yoga is to get the Kundalini stimulated and then to balance it with the soul. Because when the Kundalini does not have a balance with the soul, you go crazy. This is what happens. So anyway, this is why, doing Hatha Yoga is like doing making out with your partner and then not having sex. It's just, you're getting your body prepared for something and then not following through. Hatha Yoga, the yoga studios where they don't understand that Hatha Yoga is the first level of preparing the body for higher meditations. It's what it's there for. So that's why I laugh when people get so wrapped up in Iyengar or whatever their specific Hatha Yoga is, because they're completely clueless to the whole point of it. It's not about perfecting the poses. It's about doing the stretching so that you release the kundalini, that the hatha, the sun and the moon, the two halves of the body, get balanced so that the body will be able to handle the amount of energy that will come with the higher level meditations and exercises. Sorry, I had to go off on that. So anyway, I obviously had a lot of unresolved psychological issues that I had to deal with, and so yesterday I just couldn't move all day. So we'll see. We just went through the eclipse, so I think that has a lot to do with it. We went through the eclipse where Rahu, the north node of the moon, really connected, and so I got stimulated in all that releasing of my past life and letting go, and hopefully I can move forward, but I'm prepared to just let it be whatever it's going to be. And I'm prepared to go through this shift. I'm prepared to be prepared to go through this shift of dying to myself and having a new life. And so flexibility is really important. I wanted to focus on this. Flexibility is what I teach. My teacher is right. If you want to get the process started, you can do things like Kundalini Yoga to release the spine. But the flexibility of the spine is the same thing that Tai Chi masters, they root and the spine becomes very flexible. And that's why you see so many really healthy old people in China doing Tai Chi. There's a reason for that. Because as you get older, you have to be flexible. And what is the easiest way to be flexible? The easiest way to be flexible is to drop the fear. Fear keeps you rigid, and rigid is death, rigor mortis. So if you're stiff in your approach to life, if you are full of fear, if you are somebody who is a victim, has a victim mentality, if you are somebody who is into conspiracies, you are stiff, and that's when death and disease comes. When you get stiff, that's when death and disease comes. So you can do the physical things to keep yourself and your spine flexible, but you also have to do the mental and emotional and spiritual work to keep yourself flexible. I met a guy out here who claims to have healed himself from cirrhosis of the liver and cancer and a bunch of other, terminal things that the doctors just said, this is it. And he healed himself from it. Now, he's not into all this other stuff that I just got through talking about, but he had the flexibility. This was a guy who was a real tough guy. And I won't get into, I'm not authorized to share a story, but he was a real tough guy. And so cirrhosis of the liver is the hardening of the liver. And the liver is where we store our resentments, our anger. And he was a very angry, violent guy. And in order to save his life through, whatever he went through and whatever, teaching he received, he became aware that he had to completely shift. And he focused on other people, and he focused on helping other people. He dropped all of the anger, he dropped all of the violence, he dropped all of the resentment, not in a false way like a lot of people, and he has no ego attachment to it. I've been with the guy, and I can tell when somebody has false ego. He has no ego attachment to it. He just wants to be happy and enjoy his life, and now he's the kindest, friendliest, most helpful, kind of person you would ever want to meet. And he's got my respect. I'm gonna keep this guy around in my life, and I'm gonna use him as an example. And one of the things he did is that he's flexible in his thinking, meaning he dropped the victim mentality, he dropped the anger, he dropped all of the conspiracy theory mindset of they're doing. He dropped all of that, and he focused on just enjoying living one day at a time. And he has mastered that. So much so that he reversed all of these irreversible illnesses. And that is the same thing that my teacher is saying when he says that flexibility of the spine is where the youth is. If you stay flexible, you can stay young up until you leave this earth. So this is what I'm teaching, guys. Again, it is so surprising to me how many people watch my channel and want to come onto my channel and want to ask me questions. And I'm telling you, the neo.thunderwizard.com, those 4 tools are absolutely essential. This is my packaging of it. I'm not the only place to learn this, as I'm sharing. There's other ways to learn this, but if you want to learn from me, this is the distillation of the 4 ways that you can keep yourself flexible and learn how to drop all the garbage that's keeping you trapped and rigid and bringing death to you. Okay? So the way to avoid death is to allow yourself to die to yourself. Die to all of the things, all of your attachments, all of the things that keep you rigid. It starts with your fears. Drop the fear, drop the victim mentality, learn to shift and do the things that frighten you. The other thing he does is this guy does contrary action, which is he does things that are completely contrary to what his instincts tell him to do. Flexibility, again. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I've got places to go today, so I'm going to go do it. So that's me for today. This is my reinventing myself vlog for today. The weekend's coming up. I hope you guys are enjoying. I think it's 4th of July. I think it's July 5th now where I am. Yep, we're out of 4th of July. I didn't worship it. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't celebrate it because I'm not in the U.S. and I don't have a strong attachment to all that stuff right now. But if you're enjoying your 4th, enjoy some fireworks and eat a couple of hot dogs and have a great day. And I will talk to you guys very soon.